All right, we are live. The podcast flux capacitor is fluxing. We are live on Twitch and Twitter and YouTube. So if you're watching the beginning of this video, this doesn't make it into the podcast, but thanks for coming out. Let us know in the chat where you're coming to us from and all those good things. And we're going to get started in just a minute because we have Pam Hubler pointing the wrong way down there.
Hi.
I assume she's in the lower right-hand corner for everybody. Okay, excellent.
It works.
All right, Stephanie, the boss is in the house. Good evening, Stephanie. And we will get started. And again, we'll play that game of this doesn't make it into the podcast. All right, here we go. Coming up on episode 94 of PodcastPD, we chat with Pam Hubler, and we learn about the lies we tell ourselves, and we can overcome self-doubt and negative thinking. And we have our next pod study recommendation. Let's start the show. This is PodcastPD, the show that provides you with anytime, anywhere professional development. Our conversations and guests will provide you with the learning you might get in a faculty meeting or on a PD day. Except you're going to have more fun with AJ Bianco, Stacey Lindis, and me, Chris Nessie. Let's start the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It doesn't matter when you listen. We're just happy that you make Podcast PD a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. My name is Chris Nessie, at Mr. Nessie on Twitter, and I am joined as always by my Podcast PD compadres, Stacey Lindis and Arturo Johansson Bianco. What is up, Stacey and AJ?
Arturo, go ahead. You go first.
I think your names are really slacking here with the names. I think
that one was bad.
You got to just stick to something. You got to stick to something, man. I don't even know where you're going with this anymore.
All right, so I'm glad Stacey and AJ are here. Let's do our New Jersey weather report.
Central Jersey weather.
What's up, AJ?
Doing well, Christopher. Thank you for the warm welcome as always. I appreciate it. How are you?
That's the only thing that's warm right now in most places in this country.
It's gonna be 40s. It's gonna be in the 40s this week, man. It's like spring.
Spring-ish.
Spring-ish. I like that.
Spring-ish.
It's all right. The weather is always warm because my mind, it's baseball season.
Hold on.
I thought you were gonna say your mind was on fire.
No.
Oh
That's his other podcast, MOF, Mind on Fire.
I don't need another podcast.
Not yet.
I've got enough.
Well, actually, you know what? Stacey, we'll have to talk about something you're doing, but how are you as we start the show tonight?
I am doing all right. It's Sunday. I'm all prepped for this week, so that feels good. Usually I go into the week slightly underprepared, but I'm feeling good about the week coming up. I don't know about you guys, but I know Groundhog's Day is February 2nd, but this month has felt like weeks just keep getting added on. Like I get to Sunday and I'm like, oh, it's going to be March tomorrow. And it's not happened yet. And it's still not going to happen. And I've been thinking that, I think, since the 7th. So I don't know. I feel like I'm living on a Groundhog Week for the entire month.
Well, if it makes you feel better, Stacey, we are getting ready to enter the 9th week of the year.
Why will that make me feel better?
Yeah, well, I don't understand.
I don't know. We're 9 weeks into 2021. So
out of 52. All right, 950 seconds of the year is complete.
Too much math for me, and it wasn't all that much.
It wasn't all that much. But I'm doing all right. How are you, Chris?
I am doing well. It was a busy week here in my world, teaching virtually, creating podcasts, and of course, spending a lot of time in Clubhouse, which we did. We did our first Podcast PD Clubhouse thing, which was a lot of fun.
It was our second.
We've done two since our last recording.
Yes.
That's true. The first one was like, let's try this. And the second one was more planned, I think.
Yes.
It was cool.
Was
now,
fun.
Stacey, before it was cool. Stacey, now you're not podcasting, but
I mean, that's what I'm doing right now.
Well, we sort of got Stacey to do her own thing, sort of, kind of, in a roundabout way. And So what are you doing, Stace?
So tomorrow, which will be too late for anyone who's not listening live, I will be, I guess, creating a Clubhouse room on my drive to school. And Chris will be helping me because I don't want to drive and Clubhouse at the same time. It seems unsafe. So I don't know. I think I'm going to start with some type of Monday motivation, like a drive with me type thing. But I'm still working on the name. So if you have any ideas, let me know. And we'll come up with a name, but it will be tomorrow at 7, Mondays at 7. And then again on Fridays as a end of the week reflection and setting a good mindset for your last day with your kids or in your school or for your week.
I would like to suggest Stacey in the morning in her car.
Nope.
Okay. Was it the jingle that threw you off or just the name?
I think both. I'm not a
Okay.
jingly kind of person.
Just make sure you schedule it now for Mondays and Fridays going forward.
Yes.
Great idea.
I know.
All right.
Such a thinker. I just need to show
before
it.
it gets, we'll come up with a name. Before it gets any stranger, we do have a guest, and she's here on YouTube and Twitch and Periscope with us, and we are joined by the phenomenal Pam Hubler. Pam is an instructional coach at Daniel Island School in Berkeley County, South Carolina, and she is a Google certified trainer. She has experience teaching K through 8 special education and general education, as well as being an instructional and technology coach. Pam Hubler, welcome to Podcast PD.
Thanks. That was a great summary.
You made it very simple to summarize you, but now we're going to have to expand it out and get all complicated. And thanks for being here. We're very excited.
Of course. Thanks for having me. And Stacey, I do think maybe like shotgun with Stacey would be kind of cool.
Wow.
Oh,
So you're sitting shotgun.
Ooh,
I like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's. I'm going to write that down. I like that one. All right.
Yeah, baby.
Thank you so much. That's a good one.
That sound good.
Get used to that.
So, Pam, how are you? Life is good. School year is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of feel you with the groundhog thing. We moved over the summer, and so I feel like this year is still a continuation of last year. So it's a little long, but so I feel you with the Groundhog Day.
Yeah, it's been a tough go.
There's that joke going around that when it gets to be March, it'll be March to March, and there's like nothing has happened since last March. It's ridiculous. Crazy.
It is weird. We've been in person since the beginning of the school year, so that's been good. But it's still been strange just because of the combination of kids in person and online and, people having to learn things quick. But it's been nice to see people, which I know a lot of people aren't able to do. So.
All right, Pam, we're going to dive in because we brought you in here for a very specific reason. And we've had some conversations to try and get you on here in the past. And for some reason, this is the topic that really stood out. And the title of this episode is We're Not Smart Enough. And that's a play on your words from your recent blog writings, where you talk about how you have felt at times that you are not smart enough. And that post really resonated with the three of us because I'll be honest, I beat myself up all the time about what I don't know and what I'm not doing and how I'm a horrible educator or a horrible podcaster. And, there's things I beat myself up about. And I know AJ does that and Stacey does that from time to time as well. But let's talk about this. Why did you feel that way?
It's a really long story. And I'm actually, I realized after listening to your podcast, I'm older than all of you. It makes me kind of sad. But anyway, so 23 years into education, I'm just now, I think, starting to get to the point where I'm old enough to say, oh, okay, I can talk myself out of those thoughts. Where when you're younger, you may not. But growing up, and anyone that knows me now would probably be pretty surprised, I was not a good student at all. Like I went for the socialization, and I did like being there and I liked learning, but I don't think I had the motivation or really the encouragement to actually put forth the effort that I really could have, which I now know, but I didn't then. So that's kind of where it comes from. And then also the things in a traditional setting, when the teachers are just talking at you the whole time, that's not that I don't work well with that. So I'm that person that, I might see something and be like 5 minutes later going, oh God, what were we just talking about? I totally missed that. And at that point, I can't catch up, So it's one of those. And I think a lot of people are like that. So, and I was the one that was a doodler. I would like to doodle. And now I actually teach people how to sketch note. That wasn't a thing then. So, and then video. We didn't even have technology. Again, one of my strengths, I love technology. We didn't have that. So a lot of the things that we have now to learn are not things that we had to learn. It was a book, paper, and the teacher that told you everything. So, and it wasn't something that I really got into at the time and put forth like this much effort. So that's basically where it came from. And then hearing, whether it's parents or just really even teachers, I hate to say, not being very positive just because they don't know what's going on, So that's kind of where it came from. And I think most people can connect at some point in their teaching or just education career with that same thought.
I'll raise my hand. I can connect with it.
Yeah, Pam, the way you're describing that sounds like me to a T as a student. I did not enjoy going to school. I went to school for basically 3 reasons: my friends, baseball, and because I had to. And that was really about it.
Yep.
See, I love school. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was going to say, for me, I guess I was a good student, or the more I reflect back on it, I think I played the game of school well. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't cause trouble. I was well liked by my teachers. And if I really think back on my 4 years of high school, was I smart, or was I just well behaved and did what I was supposed to do, and did that pay off? I like to think that I was intelligent, and I've gotten more intelligent because of that experience. But there are days where I have my doubts of, how did I get to where I'm supposed to be? And, am I justified in doing what I do?
Yeah. And I'm pretty similar to all of that in that, as an adult, there's always that self-talk that is not always the most positive. And, but I think my schooling or my school years were a little bit different than yours. I adored going. I love school. I was a teacher's pet. That should not surprise too many people. And, and I really, really liked learning. I still really, really enjoy learning. And I think that, by the time I got to middle school and high school, I realized that it was not going to be as easy as elementary school. And I think that created a work ethic in me that has served me well. But I also know how you can definitely get stuck in your head and wonder over and over again if you're good enough or you're smart enough. And gosh darn it, do people like me? Right. And what does that look like? And, how do you get out of that negativity?
I like how you said that about getting stuck in your head, because that's one of my phrases when I talk about that is like, get out of your head and into your heart. Because we get in that vicious cycle of what you tell yourself. And then it's hard to get out of sometimes, unless you either need somebody else to get you out of it, or you have to have some kind of routines, or even if it's just listening to something in the morning or just something to get you out of your head. So we do more damage to ourselves than some of the people around us, So yeah.
Absolutely. And so you talk about those routines and things that help you get out of your head and into your heart. So what are those routines for you?
For me, and I'm a Christian, so that prayer is one thing that I do. And even the music that I listen to, I tend to listen to more inspirational type music, or at least more upbeat music. And then now that I do love learning, and I love I love teaching other people. Like that stuff, it actually helps me. If I'm helping other people, then I totally get out of my head and into just helping others. So, and I think everyone's different as far as what they need to do in order to get there. But for me, that's pretty much it. And then I also, I have a kind of a journaling planner. It's a passion planner. And it does have some reflection included in that. And I do use it. And that kind of helps me look at what I've already done. And it kind of asks you some questions. So that way you can plan for like, what do you want to change? What did go well? And then what didn't go well? And how can you change that? So just making yourself be reflective and move along without really kind of sticking in the past too long.
Is being reflective something that's always been a part of you, or, where did you pick that up from? Or
honestly, I think I've always been intuitive as far as people, like moods and things like that, but reflecting for myself was not. And I don't think I really started it until I was a personalized learning coach a few years back. And that was one of the things that we started talking about with kids, like getting them to reflect in order to make changes and setting goals and all that stuff. And I don't think I realized I didn't do it myself. So I think that's really when it started, because we were obviously teaching kids how to do it. So when you start teaching people how to do it, you start doing it more yourself. So I don't think I was really as reflective until then. I think that's pretty much when it started, probably only, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, where I really started making that a habit.
So the blog post that Chris referenced in the beginning, you make reference to reading Rachel Hollis's book, Girl Wash Your Face.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I know that she has a whole routine. I don't want to call it a journaling routine, but I know that there are some prompts that you can go through daily that I actually started incorporating that I really enjoy. And I'm wondering if that's also part of your practice, where you do your daily 5 things that you're thankful for, and then the 10 things it's like 10 affirmations, 10 things you are, or 10 things that you made happen for the day.
I don't really, I think I may have tried to, but when you start to try to do things that are too long, you're really good at it for like a week. And then after that, it doesn't happen. So I kind of do more of that. I try to write in my journal every day. And then really just looking at it after my work day to reflect on my work day. And then that way I can totally switch out from my work day into like personal, like what does the rest of the day look like before I get back into work mode? So that's really the only thing that I use from that.
I like that switch. I bet you that makes a more concrete delineation between like work and home, especially now that for so many of us, work is at home.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's not necessarily the case for you, but I know for many others it is. And it's like almost like closing a book literally and moving on to something else.
Mm-hmm. And I totally get I get absorbed into all the educational stuff. Well, between the podcasts and the books, I mean, I always have, I usually have about 3 books in my bag for just what I feel like reading at the moment. And so I kind of have to do that. So I pay attention to my family. Otherwise, I'll be playing on the computer, or I'll be on a Twitter chat, or there's so many things that if they're all busy, that's what I'm doing. And I like it. I really do like it. So it's not like I'm overworking myself. I like it.
I think that falls under something I've seen of late where, again, with the way the world and education is right now, we see a lot of people saying and talking about self-care and how are people getting their self-care and how do you escape from the things that you want to take a break from or escape from. And, like for me, I dive into, whether it's this podcast or, House of Ed Tech, or like, I will still sit here, that's part of how I do escape, even though I sit here at the same computer and I will do my live stream classes for the high school and, what I do, for college, I still find value in sitting here, and I will relax and I'll listen to podcasts, or I'll throw on some more Spotify and I'll work on stuff. But this is still where I can escape, even though at times sitting in the same spot aggravates me, you know, when I see all avatars on the screen and I'm not getting the engagement that I want. What is it for you besides, you know, maybe reading, or do you find yourself doing similar things where you still dive into your profession, or what does Pam do outside of education? Where, how do you escape and kind of recharge?
Well, we have, my husband and I have been married for 27 years. Yeah. I have to think about that.
Congratulations. That's a wonderful thing.
Thanks. Yeah. So we've been married for a long time, and he's still like my best friend. So we do like to do things together. And now that our kids are getting a little bit older, we try to, you know, every week where it's like, okay, it's Thursday, let's go out to eat, just because. And we leave the kids at home because they can find stuff to eat. So really spending time together is one thing. And then we just moved out to more of a country area in South Carolina. So just being outdoors, just, you know, lots of places to go. What else? And then I have been exercising more lately because, you know, we all had to sit through COVID at home for a while. And then it's like, okay, I need to start doing something. So I've been going to the gym more, and I still listen to my podcasts and stuff like that when I'm there, but it does get me away from everything. And you can't really multitask when you're at the gym. So that's helpful. So really that's it. And I would love to doodle. You know, I said I like to sketch note and like to draw color. So sometimes I'll do that. Even my son likes to do that. So yeah, so it just depends. But I do like creating things technology wise, or, you know, the blog, and I do the Shake Up Learning community. I the moderating on there. So, but I like it. I really do like it. So that's my little social outlet there. So there's a lot of things I do to unplug, but it's not usually unplugged. That's the funny part.
AJ, what about you? And not that we're like interviewing each other, but you know, you're in this new role as an administrator. You're like me, you got the little kids at home. So it's not like you in the shadow are leaving the kids home to forage for themselves. So what does it look like for you?
What does unplugging look like for me? Is that what you're asking me right now? What does unplugging look like for me?
Sure.
I don't know. My unplugging is between 5 and 6 a.m. I sit there, have a cup of coffee by myself in the absolute quiet until I have to start getting dressed for work and waking up the family to get them moving. And then it happens again at 9 o'clock at night, where I can kind of just do the things that I want to do. You know, I think, you know, that's, and Chris, you know this, like everybody basically knows, like, we are recording this at night. It's going to go out for everybody to listen whenever they want to. But, you know, I asked for this time because this is the time that we're settled, right? So 9 o'clock at night is my time, and I'm a night owl. So I'll stay up until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, do the things I need to do, and be up again at 5:30 the next day. So, that is my time to unplug. And something I've talked about in the past is just, it's different for everybody. Stacey, raising your hand, you don't like going to bed too late. You like to get up early, you do your thing. So I get it. Like, it's different. But during that time between 9 to 12, I do anything I want to do, whether I'm watching sports, watching a movie, reading, writing, recording, you name it.
Right. We know that recording the show sometimes cuts into Stacey's bedtime.
That it does.
Depends how long the post show goes.
Yes, that's usually what it is. And so I know someone mentioned starting Clubhouses after they record live, and there's no way that could happen for me.
I don't think that's something we will do, but I mean, that's a time suck now, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing out on the Clubhouse thing, but I'm
Pam,
one of those.
I don't want to make you feel left out. Are you Android or iPhone?
Yes, I am. I am Android. I'm PC, like all that. The only thing I have with I in front of it is an iPod that lives in my car that hasn't been synced since 2010 because I'll lose all my music.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it just kind of lives there.
Well, when Clubhouse is going to come to Android, it's only a matter of time. It's too popular not to. So I imagine you'll find yourself on there playing with us over there too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm sure.
All right, Pam,
Now-
I'm gonna dig in because I'm really curious about this. And Chris, you touched on it before, but I wanna dive deeper here. So the blog post that you wrote is from January of this year. And I gotta be honest, reading it really inspired me because a lot of the lies that you mention are things that I have told myself a lot over the last, we'll say, 5.5 years, right? So a lot of lies you highlight, something like "I'll start tomorrow." That's definitely something that I said to myself and still say to myself that it's going to happen. I like told Stacey I like starting things on a Monday, or I like starting things at the beginning of a month. So I got 2 opportunities for that coming up: tomorrow, Monday, or March 1st, both on a Monday. So that "I'll start tomorrow" is huge for me. But I really want to go to this big one here, the "I'm not smart enough." I know there's a whole story behind it that you're going to share. And I don't know if you want to kind of dig into what you're planning, but I'll let you keep that a secret if you want to. But you know, I'm in my new role as a vice principal, and I'm sitting in admin meetings, or I'm sitting in front of my teachers, and you know, people are asking questions, and I feel like I have an answer, and then I have an answer. I'm like, was that the right answer? You know, and then I question myself. You know, a lot of self-doubt and negativity kind of creeps in, and like I said, it's been there for 5 years. So what made you write this post? I know you're based on a book, but what made you write this post? And from your reflection of it, how has it changed you?
Well, when I listened to, because when I was walking, and I want to say it was actually when we first went on quarantine, I was listening to it because, of course, walking was one thing we could do. So I was listening to it, and all the lies that she had talked about in her book, I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized that even though it wasn't an educational book, I thought of all the things that teachers or just educators in general, all the things they have to do, all the hats they wear, and just all those lies that we do tell ourselves, mainly because of all the hats. And I think especially when we start a new position, or let's say, you know, you're teaching one grade 1 year, and then the next grade you have to go up to, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have to start over. I can't do this. I don't know enough for this. I don't know the standards. I don't know, just so many things that you may not know. And then that's when the self-doubt kind of gets in there. Like, I'm not smart enough to do this. And the whole, like, as far as when I do talk about the not being smart enough, and I did mention a little bit that, you know, the way the things that my sister was a very hard worker at school. I was not, but I'm the oldest. So it was one of those, like, you know, not that it was ever intentional, but it's like, look, your sister has homework. Do you have homework? No. You know, things like that. So it was always like, you know, when you're always compared to somebody else for a long time, then it just starts to get in where you're like, do you even want to try anymore? Like, no, I don't, because I have no reason to. I'm not that person. And then I think as I started looking at the different ones that she had mentioned, it started coming up again. We even had I think it was actually one of the pastors did a little session for us at school, and he talked about lies. And I was like, oh my gosh, this just keeps on coming up. And that's when I was like, this is definitely a thing, especially now when everyone's in a situation that kind of puts you in more of a negative headspace. Just because of the situation around us. I think it gets worse. And when we're not with the people that we are normally with, or maybe you have that group of people that are really positive and you thrive off of being around them, but you can't be around them because of either quarantine or whatever it might be. So it just kept coming up. So I figured, well, it wasn't just me. Obviously, it's not just me. So the more we could talk about it and come up with strategies of how to get out of the negative thoughts, I just figured it would be a good conversation to start, you know?
So I appreciate that, because I feel like none of us want to talk about that. We don't want to allow people to know that we are doubting ourselves, but it's happening on a regular basis. So I think that's really powerful. So I appreciate reading through this. I appreciate what you had shared.
Thanks. And there was another, it was years ago, when the personalized learning coach position that I did, it was one of those positions that came up, and a friend was like, oh my gosh, this job has your name written all over it. And I was like, all right, I wasn't planning on moving or doing anything. And then another person came to me with the same position. It was like, you've got to apply. It literally has your name all over it. I was like, oh, well, I guess this must be my next plan. So, I applied, I got it. But the people that I worked with were amazing. And it was this one group, I think we might have had about 20 of us at the time. And it was one of those moments where you get into that position, like yours, AJ, like you're like, oh my gosh, like I am not at the caliber of these people, or I'm not even close to as smart as these people. And then you have to get out of your head and start to think, well, okay, they hired me for this. So somebody thought I either had the potential or something about what I can bring to the table is valuable to this position. And one of the videos, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I think it's Amy Cuddy, The Power of Body Language. And it's like a 20-minute. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Right? Just listening to that, I think I cried the first time I heard it, because I was like, oh my gosh, like the fake it till you make it thing, which, the more you start to believe and the more you start to, I don't know, I guess present yourself in the way you want people to see you as, it's like you start to become it. And I don't know. So that was a roundabout way to answer that. But so I do think that was another time where it was that aha moment where, okay, well, somebody put me here into this position. So somebody thought I had the potential, or they needed me for some reason or another. And then, of course, myself, like I said, I'm a Christian. So it's one of those like, okay, well, all right, God, this is the plan now. This is where we're going.
I've had the similar experience, but not with the same results as Stacey and AJ and people know. In that I've been in that position where, hey, Chris, apply for this job. It's got your name all over it. And haven't gotten that job yet. But as I sit here and I'm hearing you talk about reflection, and I'm reflecting, I'm like, all right, I could talk about that. But then the other thing that creeps into my head is, well, there's what I do at the university level where people said, hey, this is for you. You, Stacey and AJ were like, you go for that. And like, I'm thriving in that role, but there are those things where I'm not cool enough to talk in the third person, but Chris gets in Chris's head, and I need to like fight myself and beat up like that evil version of me. That's like, you can't do it. You're not good enough. And I just want to punch that guy in the face.
Right.
That's luckily I have good friends like Stacey. Yeah, right. Sorry. You just want to punch me in the face. But like I have my people, like I have Stacey and AJ, and, you talk about the relationships that you have with the people that you work with. And sometimes you have that in your building or in your district. And sometimes you find people in other places. So I've got Stacey, I've got AJ, I've got people that I still talk to in my district and my school. We talk on Google Chat during the day, or we text, and, connecting with people on Twitter. Again, this is a big theme of the last couple episodes here at PodcastPD, the power of connecting. So yeah, I mean, everything you're saying resonates. Yeah.
Because I listened to that one the other day, and when I had the personalized learning coach position, I love social media. It's just because I'm just that extrovert person that needs people. But I was listening to that, and it made me think of they made us use Twitter. And it was one of those times where I was like, oh man, like I already have so much. I don't need another one. And so I always joke they made me tweet. So kind of like literally like, oh, they made me tweet. So, and they did, but it turned out to be amazing. And I, obviously I'm on there all the time. I think that's how I connected with most of you. And that also gave me another level of like a group of people to connect with. And because it was a place where I realized that you can be in the same conversation with a superintendent, with a teacher, with like all different roles, but it's the same conversation or same topic. And then you don't even realize what that person does, and it doesn't matter. So that kind of gave me another level of, oh, okay. It's like, oh, wow, I'm talking to a superintendent, or I'm talking to whatever. And it didn't matter. And it's not, you're never in the same place at those people with those people in person usually. So in a social media platform like Twitter, it's open to just ideas instead of what your title is.
See, it's so amazing you say that. And that's something I thought like at the beginning when I was on Twitter. Like we connect with all these people. We feel great talking to all these people. We feel like we can do it, right? We all like, oh, I can talk to this person, that person. Doesn't matter what your role is, what your title is. Everybody's on the same level. But then when you get face to face, you get in your school, you start doubting yourself if you can actually have those conversations. So I don't know what it is, and I don't know if you experience that. Like if you feel like more comfortable behind a computer screen or on a phone versus in person. Like not that I can't hang, because I feel like I've built up that confidence, or I can hang, but it's just different. Like that thought process when we're over the computer.
Yeah, I do think it's easier over the computer. And I think because if they're there, they're comfortable with having a conversation with anybody, where when you see them in person, you almost have to kind of feel out the room to see like, can I just walk up to this person? Or is this person really weird when it comes to chain of commands? I mean, and because in districts, they have that. I mean, sometimes it's just not, you don't just walk up to this person. So I guess it also depends on personality. But that's harder to figure out. But if they're on Twitter, they're there for the conversation. So they'll talk to anybody,
It's true.
I want to shout out other Pamela, who's watching us on YouTube, and she has a great comment. Your PLN helps you close down the negative voices. # we all need cheerleaders. Love that.
Yes.
I love that.
And it's funny because Pam we're very good friends, and we do a coffee EDU together. She works for Discovery Education. And so, yeah, so she's my other Pam. We're Pam squared when we're together.
Stacey, do you want to ask Pam, or can you ask Pam our all guest question?
Yeah. So one of the questions that we like asking I have two questions for you. Because we've been doing this pod study thing, and while you don't have your own podcast yet, right, as Chris would say, looking at your blog, I mean, you've been blogging since 2014, which in the blogging world is a really long time. Is there a blog post besides the one that we talked about tonight that you would point people to that you think that would have a good impact for people now, whether it be COVID days or people now in their negative self-talk, or just something that you're like, this is the one post. If this is the only thing that my blog is known for, this is the one post, what would that post be?
Oh, that's hard, because although I've been doing it for a long time, I did start doing that just as a way of sharing ideas. And I figure, okay, whoever reads it. If they don't like it, they're not going to read it. So, right. So just put it out there. But I did write one. I want to say it was probably in August, and it's really not for like the whole, like what we're talking about here, but it's more just kind of planning for a year like no other. And I just pulled together a bunch of resources, and some of it is a little bit of self-care, but really I think a lot of it was more resources for the whole blended learning and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I'd have to look to see what it's called, but I think it's called Planning for a Year Like No Other. But it was this
It's called
year,
A Year
so
Like
it's
No
probably,
Other.
I think it's a year. Yeah. So I'd have to look.
A Year Like No Other. And you posted it on August 23rd for anyone who wants to go back and look.
Okay.
Yep,
Yes. So that had a bunch of resources in it. And other than that, I'd honestly have to go back. I've got a bunch of other things that are Google related. But they're not super deep. It's just helpful.
And sometimes you don't need the super deep. Sometimes you just need the quick and
Yes.
get it done type thing. All right. And so the second question, the one that Chris was referencing, is, you have a prolific background in being a professional development type person. So what type of PD do you prefer to either attend, or if you're in charge of the PD, what type of PD do you like to give?
I definitely like the in-person PDs, definitely more than what we're having to do now. Conferences, that's how my love of all things education really probably started, going to conferences. And FETC in Florida is the one that I would go to. And I would honestly think I'd started going 20, it was a long time ago. Because I grew up there. So that was where I first learned, started teaching. So conferences are number one. Ed camps, honestly, I think they're really, really valuable. And that's actually our friend Pam that's here. I think we may have met in person at an ed camp at the first time. Those are great because then you meet other people, for one, that, okay, they're at an educational event on a Saturday. So right there, you know you're going to have something in common. And then it's just a great networking place. And then you can kind of everyone has a voice. And I do love ed camps. And then as far as school related, I like to have unstructured time, even if we do have in-person sessions, kind of have some unstructured time. So that way, if you do have a connection with other people in the room, you do have time to plan or even just to have a conversation. So that way it doesn't stop there. Because I think that's kind of one of the things that we don't really take advantage of is the next steps after professional development. And it's usually the connections or finding those kind of like that PLN, but in person, finding those people to continue to learn with, or at least build those networks with.
I love that. All of that speaks to me as an extrovert. And like every time you're like, I'm an extrovert, I'm like, yes, she is. She's like at conferences and she's talking to people and she likes helping others. And I think like, yeah, I totally get all that.
Yeah. Have you ever done that? That's totally off topic, but have you ever done the color code test? It's colorcode.org. You've got to do it. All of you. You got to do that. It is, and it's actually super helpful when it comes to like building communities in school, because it's one that you take the test when you're a kid, like you think of how you were as a kid. So that way you can't really, because you can almost kind of make it say what you want to if you think about how you are now, situational. But if you think about how you were as a kid, you can't really make that up. I mean, I guess you could, but why would you? You're just taking the test. And there's like 4 colors. There's white, red, blue, and yellow. And yellow is like fun. Everything has to be fun. That's me. I'm like a Pac-Man size of it. It's really bad. Red is more like power. Blue, I think, is more, I can't really think of the description of that one, but then white are like the peacemakers. So it's just a really neat thing to do to find out kind of how to deal with those people in your building, how to deal with them, but then also how they can deal with you. So it's actually very cool. But anyway.
Perfect. Good to know. Thank you.
Everything we've talked about, we will do our best. We'll go back and make sure everything is in the show notes for this episode out at PodcastPD.com/94. And one of the things that'll be there is a link to this blog post from Pam, and it'll link out to her website, which is spedtechgeek.com. And you're going to want to connect with Pam if you are not already connected with Pam on Twitter. She is at Special Techie, and we had a great time talking with Pam. And I'm going to throw in one more question because we're about to announce our next Pod Study podcast episode, and this one is going to come to us from AJ. But Pam, what podcasts are you enjoying right now? Give us one or two that you're loving.
Well, you know I have to say Shake Up Learning because that's like she's my favorite. So Shake Up Learning, her podcast for sure is number one. And then I have actually been catching up on PodcastPD and House of Ed Tech. Cult of Pedagogy is one that I listen to. And let's see, there's quite a few, but I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I'll have to ask then, what is your favorite non-education related podcast?
I don't listen to any others. If there's been a couple that are more inspirational, but I usually don't they're on there, but I never go to those. So I really don't. It's either I'm listening to a book that's completely unrelated, or a podcast that's educational.
I'm also just curious because, well, we have Stacey here. Pam, how many unlistened to podcast episodes do you happen to have on your device?
Downloaded, I think there's only 4.
Now, okay. Now, when you say 4, is that like the singular 4 in the ones place? Well, if we're looking at math, the ones place, the number 4?
Yes.
Huh.
Just
That's
4.
funny because I think if we correspond that to Stacey's number, her number has 4 digits. What's your number, Stacey?
But do they download
2000
automatically? Because if
Yes.
mine,
Oh, yes, they do.
if mine downloaded automatically, I would have a lot more. Those I like intentionally download them, so that's not really like, you know.
Yeah. They download automatically so I can not forget about them, but forget about them. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like almost like it's like when you buy that book and it kind of sits on your shelf until you're ready for it. That's how I feel like some of these podcasts are. But my number is 2,748.
Oh wow.
So yeah, and that was, Chris, after deleting some of the PodcastPD duplicates that re-downloaded after the merge onto our new site. So yeah.
Well, don't worry. If people haven't figured it out, they're not hearing this anyway.
I'm just saying. 2,748. That's my number.
Are you okay with that number in your email box? That's the big question.
Oh, it's just not an email. So it's a badge, like, right. So it's like at the bottom. It's kind of
I just need that number. You see the number on your email? Like that.
No, my email right now has 25, and some of them just kind of linger because, again, I'll get to them. It used to be inbox 0. I stopped hurting myself with that one.
I can't do that, but I can't handle the number. I've seen a lot of people where they've got that like thousands of unread emails. I'm like, oh my God.
No, I won't go over 2 digits. Mm-mm.
You say that now. But anyway, all right, before AJ talks about our next Pod Study podcast, we'd like to thank our executive producers without whom which Podcast PD wouldn't be as awesome as it is. So if you've ever gotten value from these conversations, and I'm sure that you do, there is a way that you can support our efforts as we create this podcast for you. You can show your support on a monthly or a yearly basis, and you can support Podcast PD by either donating $5 a month or $50 per year. And as a thank you for your support, we will give every executive producer an exclusive sticker. And if you support us on a yearly basis, we will also get you a Podcast PD mug and a t-shirt. For more information, you can go to podcastpd.com/executive producer. And I want to thank specifically Adam Kelly, Mike Brilla, I tried to do that as best I could, Stephanie Scrocky, and Sandy Hartman. Thank you for being executive producers of this fine podcast. AJ, what's our next pod study? Pod study number 2.
All right, for pod study number 2, here's your job out there, listener. You're going to go find the Peg Doesn't Fit podcast. You're going to go find episode 15 called Eric's Dream School. But I'm going to put a twist on it because we're going to have both Eric and Ryan on the show with us next week. So if you get done with episode 15, go listen to episode 17 because it deals with Ryan's dream school. So we can do with both of their dream schools and their visions for what school should look like going forward. So again, Peg Doesn't Fit, episode 15 and 17. And we're going to talk about that March 7th. Yes, sir. March 7th, live with Eric and Ryan from the Peg Doesn't Fit.
Nice. That's very exciting. All right. So,
Can't wait.
Pam, did you have fun here on Podcast PD?
I did. It was nice to chat with you. Finally.
Finally.
Yes.
We've been trying.
Yes. Pam, we said before we started, for you who's listening on the podcast side, Pam's voice has been in my head a couple of times because she's been a multi-episode guest on the Google Teacher podcast. Rest in peace. And not Pam. Pam is very much alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yes. So I've heard Pam's voice before, and I'm very familiar with her work, and I'm glad we were able to get you on here and have this great conversation, which I believe anybody listening to it and hearing your words and, connecting with us and hearing even our stories and reading your post, it's not so bad, right? It will get brighter. Dark days will be gone. And, that I'm not even talking about COVID, Like just the fact that like we're teachers and sometimes it's not easy to do what we do day in and day out. It'll get better, and just find the people who you can count on, I think is a big takeaway for me tonight.
Yeah.
What was
Get
it?
out
We
of your
all
head.
need cheerleaders.
Hashtag we all need cheerleaders.
We all need cheerleaders.
All right, Stacey.
Is it
do
time?
magic.
It's time.
It is time.
All right. So it is time to say goodbye. So say goodbye, AJ.
Goodbye, AJ.
Say goodbye, Christopher.
Goodbye, Christopher.
Say goodbye, Pam.
Goodbye, fam. I was curious about that.
Goodbye, Podcast PD.
And there's a little break for me, and everything we say is still live, but won't make it into the podcast. Pam, thank you so much.
What were you
where did
curious
that
about, Pam?
goodbye thing? The goodbye thing? Like, where did that come from?
So I actually I heard it on another podcast that nobody else listens to besides Derek Larson, so I knew I could borrow it.
Oh,
Not
okay.
because
And in
it's-
theory,
not
Stacey
because-
doesn't listen to it either.
No, I do. I do. I keep up with that one.
Is this the pen addict?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I actually went and listened to that once because of it must have been, was it the SmackDown?
I recommend it often. I'm a dork. Like it's like all the time.
I think it was the House of EdTech, the SmackDown, the 2020 SmackDown, and I think who else is that? Who's with
Derek
you?
Larson.
Derek was Derek.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
Derek.
Yes. Okay. He mentioned it, and I love pens. Like I really love pens. So I had to listen to it. And I'm like, oh, they take this to a whole new level. So I went to it.
I think Pam is me in South Carolina. Just saying.
There you go. You found somebody.
You finally found someone.
Yeah, I have more fun in the office supply store than any
Please
like
still my
clothes,
heart.
shoes, you name it.
Yes.
Staples, my favorite place.
The Target like stationery aisle. Oh,
Yes,
I'm
it's bad.
excited.
My husband's like, no, do not go down there.
Yeah, that's what he's like, what are you gonna do with all your notebooks? I'm like, I'm gonna write in them. He's like, when? You're getting older.
Wow.
Yeah.
Journal your life.
I totally know that feeling.
Yes.
Good times. And
I can say bye to the other
Pam, thank you for
Bye,
bringing
Pam.
out. Thank you for bringing out other Pam.
Yes.
Tons of fun.
Yes, I'm glad she joined.
That was awesome.
Nice, and thank you to Stephanie and David for checking us out. And we'll be back on Sunday, March 7th, with the guys from The Peg Doesn't Fit. Now, just so people know, because we changed the technology that runs Podcast PD, I will not be able to send you the episode. So that's why AJ phrased it as go out and get it. So I'll link to it in the show notes for this episode. But people are going to have to go out and do that work on their own, unfortunately.
So AJ, the new expectation is to listen to both.
No, I said 15, and then if you get a chance, 17.
Okay, because I listened to 15, but
Well,
I'm
17
excited to
just came
listen
out
to
today. I didn't know
Yeah.
that's what they were doing.
Okay.
So
Well, I knew it was supposed to be coming. I just didn't realize it would come by the time we spoke.
right,
to them.
exactly.
Cool.
All right.
You should check that out, Pam. It was a really good episode.
I will.
Well,
Definitely.
she listens to this show now, so she'll do the homework. She'll be back in 2 weeks.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right. I'm
It's-
going to
It's
end
hard to, like, when
the
I'm at the
live
gym,
stream.
though, and I'm listening, I'm like, I have to remember.